All right, YouTube fans, today I got my mic with me, so you're actually going to be able to hear me more clearly than the last video I did like this, but we're back on the looms. We're going to get back into it, so let's hop into exactly how I was able to drop 40 plus pounds of pure fat. All right, this is pure fat. This is not for people who just want to lose weight and who don't really care about, body composition. This is all body composition. This is for those of you who care about fat loss. The reason I am going over this and the reason I'm talking about this is because every time I go live on TikTok, and majority of the questions I get on Instagram, on YouTube are always something around aesthetics, something around losing fat, something's around losing belly fat, something around looking more muscular, looking more aesthetic. And all of that relates to and has to do with you maintaining your muscle mass while you're losing fat. That's the most important thing. So I don't care about if you're just trying to lose weight and all that goofy shit. All right. This is for natural fucking lifters who want to lose fat while maintaining muscle mass. This is not the bullshit advice that you guys get from these steroid users that tell you, oh, just do this, just do that. They don't fucking know what to do because they're on steroids. All right. I was able to drop 40 plus pounds of pure fucking fat. All right, while maintaining muscle. That's what's going to get you the summer look that you guys are looking for. That's what's going to get you the aesthetic look that gives you that confidence as well. And you're going to maintain your energy and testosterone levels because you're going to be maintaining your muscle mass. All right, so let's get right into it. Who this is not for. It's not for you if you're under the age of 18. All right, this is not for you if you're uncoachable, not willing to commit to a plan for at least 3 months, which is a joke. Listen, 3 months, you can't even get fat as fuck in 3 months. A lot of you guys that are fat as fuck, it took you guys like 3 years. You can't get fat in 3 months, but you won't commit for 3 months or longer than 3 months to get lean. It's the craziest shit ever, all right? I don't want to deal with anybody who is not willing to put in more than 3 months into something because that means you're not serious about it. In all honesty, all right? If you're full of excuses and constantly do fad diets, this is not for you. If you're doing carnivore, keto, fasting, all that goofy shit, get out of here. If you're not willing to change your relationship with food, this is definitely not for you because you're gonna have to change your perspective. You're gonna have to change your relationship with food for sure. If you're not ready to prioritize your health, obviously this is not for you. And when I say prioritize health, that means actually put yourself first and stop making excuses like eating healthy is too expensive or you don't have enough time, which is just some of the worst excuses I've ever heard in my life. All right, so first thing I need you to do is stop thinking that weight loss means fat loss. All right, just stop. It's not the same thing. All right, separate those two things from your head. So now, when you're going on your journey, focus on fat loss. All right, one thing I recommend for everybody starting their journey: check your body fat percentage at the beginning. Right, I was around 20 to 25. Just that's just a rough guesstimate of visual, and then at the end of my journey, I was probably around 8 because when I measured recently, I was like 188. I was like 9.5 ish, right, percent according to the InBody scan. So I know that back in the day I was probably down to about 8% just based on how I felt, how I looked, and my weight and my waist size, right? So when you're focusing on fat loss, not just weight loss, I recommend that you start by getting a DEXA scan or an in-body scan so you know where you're starting and you can track your progress more accurately because a lot of times people drop like 20 to 30 pounds, but they don't drop a lot of fat. So they look skinny fat when they get down to that 20, 30 pounds loss, right? And they're disappointed in the results and they're like, dang, this isn't working. When in reality, they're just not cutting correctly, all right? So stop focusing just on the scale. If you're looking at the scale, also look at body fat percentage, also look at your waist size, how your clothes are fitting you. All those things are important. All right. That's the thing I focus on as well. Like a lot of people come to me and they're like, dude, I lost 10 pounds in 2 weeks. I'm like, I don't really give a fuck, bro. How much is that is fat loss? Some of it's going to be water weight, right? It's not about losing weight the quickest. It's about losing fat efficiently in a sustainable way and being consistent. That's all it's about. All right. All that other stuff, is why a lot of people don't reach the goals that they're looking for and they get disappointed as well. All right. Like I said, too many people focus on losing weight and toning up and all that goofy shit. And that's just unsustainable. All right. People do the extra cardio and all that stuff. That's not how you get to your goals and that's not how you maintain your goals. Period. All right. So one more reason you should focus on fat loss. So if you're doing this for health, if you're doing this for aesthetics, if you're doing this for performance, that means you should focus on fat loss. Focusing on fat loss is a win-win situation. Focusing on weight loss is a lose-lose situation. All right. If you're training for aesthetics, metabolism, and health, fat loss is way more important because when you are only losing fat, right, you're going to maintain your muscle mass, which means your metabolism will stay firing, and it'll stay high. All right. The more muscle you have, the higher your metabolism. Now, there was a lady on live today and she was saying that her metabolism slowed down or whatever, or adapted or whatever, something like that. And I was asking her, I was like, what do you mean by that? Like, what happened? She's like, well, I lost a lot of muscle because I was doing a lot of cardio and I wasn't lifting weights. I was like, okay, well, why the fuck did you do that? Because now what ended up happening with her is she ended up binging and getting right back to square one, right? So there's no reason to do something that's not sustainable in the first place because you're always going to end up at square one, right? So what she did was, like I said, she was doing a bunch of cardio, did like keto, starved herself, lost a lot of muscle. Yes, she lost weight, but she lost a lot of muscle in the process. So now she has to gain that muscle back to speed back up her metabolism, but also to make sure that her body composition isn't horrible. A lot of you guys do the same shit. You're like, yo, I got a cruise coming up. So you lose a lot of weight on the scale, but it's water weight and it's muscle. That's not a good thing. All right, you don't want to be losing muscle. All right, one more thing. Make sure you are prioritizing strength training because this goes hand in hand with obviously fat loss, right? Like a lot of you guys say, hey man, how much cardio should I do? Or should I do cardio? You can lose a lot of fat without doing cardio. All right. Cardio burns fat. It doesn't help you lose fat. It just burns fat. It's that simple. All right. It's gonna put you maybe it'll put you in a bigger deficit, but a lot of times people do not eat the right food, so they don't even stay in a deficit. Reason I recommend strength training is because and make sure you maintain your muscle. When you're cutting, you want to make sure that you're still lifting heavy. All right. When you're cutting, I'm going to repeat that. When you're cutting, you want to make sure you're still lifting heavy so you can be maintaining your muscle mass, especially as a natural. All right. Now, if you're on some roids or some peptides or some shit, I don't know what people take these days. You can probably do whatever the fuck you want to. You don't have to listen to any of my advice and you'll get better results. All right. But if you're natural and you're trying to maintain your muscle mass, make sure that you are lifting heavy while you're in a cut. All right. Very, very important. That means if you were doing 90s on the incline bench before your cut, you don't want to drop below, 80s or 75s by the end of your cut. You just don't want to. All right. Push yourself and keep the weight high to maintain your muscle mass. Simple, simple, simple. And just because you're cutting, which is another thing, is like some people think you switch rep ranges and you switch exercises when you cut. Should be doing the same exact shit. Nothing should fucking change when you're cutting. All right. Period. All right. Like I said earlier, truth about cardio. Usually, what I've seen is anybody who is like so focused or hyper fixated on specifically cardio is usually because their nutrition is absolutely shit. All right, that's what I've noticed over the years. That's what I noticed working with people. That's what I notice every time I go on live. Like I'm gonna go on live tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Eastern, and it's gonna be some of the same questions every time. It's gonna be people talking about like, hey man, what's the best fad diet? Because they're not serious about losing fat and keeping it off, right? Or they've done it many times over and over again. If you continually do fads, you continue to do extra cardio, right? You're never going to have a solid foundation. When you have a solid foundation, you don't do all these, shiny object syndrome type things. When you have a solid foundation of high protein calorie deficit, eating whole foods, strength training, the fat's going to melt, right? Generally, people don't pay attention to what they're consuming. They don't pay attention to their body composition until it's too late, until there's an event coming up, and then they want to overcompensate by doing, like I said, 30K steps a day and eating 1,000 calories a day and shit like that. Shit that makes no sense. Why, if you're 30% body fat and it took you eating 4,000 calories a day to get there, why are you now eating 1,000 calories? Makes no fucking sense. All right, it literally makes no sense. That's what a lot of people do. So stop doing the fads. Stop doing the excess cardio when obviously you've been doing that for the past 20 years and you're still fat as shit. All right, it's clearly not the answer. All right, next, my true step count. Like, here's the thing. Here's the thing. A lot of people always assume, and I even got this question today on live as well. Someone was like, "Hey, don't you have to do 10K steps a day?" Here's the thing: if you lose fat and you've exhausted your calories, like you've reduced your calories to you know a point that you don't want to go lower than, or you'll be uncomfortable, then you can add in some steps, right? Then you can add in some steps, right? But for me, when I first started my cut, I was only doing 2 to 3K steps because I was doing at-home nursing, so I was right next to my patient all day long, and I was just cutting back on calories the entire time, strength training, and just staying patient. Right? The patience and consistency is like what most people don't have because if you stay patient and consistent, you stay in a deficit, the fat is literally gonna come off. Now, it'll slow down once you get around 12% body fat, but most people never even get there. Most people are around like fucking 30%, and they're over here like, oh my god, like should I do cardio? No, you're 30%. You literally clearly eat way too much bullshit. All right. So keep your workouts high intensity, keep lifting heavy, right? Because when you maintain, like I said, when you maintain that muscle mass, that'll make sure that you're burning fat at rest because more muscle mass you have, what did I say earlier? More muscle mass you have, the higher your BMR. Very simple. All right. So the only specific cardio I would do is like because I was so sedentary at work would be like 10 to 15 minutes before my session. And I know some people do like 10.0 incline and like what is it, 4 speed or 3.5 speed? I just do flat and then like what 2 speed, 2.5 speed, something like that. Nothing crazy. All right, just something to get me warmed up. I'm not trying to, burn out before my workout or do anything crazy because I understand that cardio burns fat, right? But to lose fat, you have to be in a calorie deficit. That's a whole different thing. So a lot of people burn fat doing cardio, and then they end up overeating after the workout. How many times have you seen, like at my gym specifically, my old gym, there was this one dude every single time, right? Every single time, big back behavior, bro. Every single time we would go to the gym, he'd be working his ass off, doing crazy shit. He'd be doing the stairmaster for like an hour. He'd do a bunch of calisthenics. He'd be in the gym for like 2 hours, right? And then he would always ask me like, "Hey, how do you lose fat? How do you lose fat?" And every time I left the gym, I would see him going into a Jamaican spot, and then he would come out with the big big plate of Jamaican food, the oxtails and shit like that, like 5,000 calories worth of food. I'm like, well, that's why he's fat as fuck, right? Because he's eating more than he's burning. Even though he's burning a lot of calories, he's eating more than he's burning. All right, it's a simple equation. Don't overcomplicate it. And a lot of people get mad at the the process and shit, but the science never changed. You just didn't do what you needed to do to make the science work. Like the science says, eat less than you burn, and he burned a lot and he ate more. So he didn't do the bare minimum. So he shouldn't be able to complain. It's literally do the fucking bare minimum or don't complain. All right, one more thing. You want to stop guesstimating with your nutrition. A lot of people guesstimate, like they're like, you know what, I might be eating this, I might be eating that, and in reality, they're eating 200 calories worth of butter, 300 calories worth of condiments, and 300 calories worth of extra snack at night that they don't track. That's extra 800 calories that takes you out your deficit, obviously, and puts you at like maintenance. So that's what a lot of people do. All right. Another thing is when you go out to eat, menus have calories. Menus have online. You could look at the menus online before you go to eat somewhere. So it's like that's not an excuse either. Eating out is not an excuse, and a lot of people try to use that. But everywhere you eat, no matter where you eat, there's healthy options. All right, and you can look up the shit online, right? It's not that deep. A lot of people be like, yeah, I went out to eat, so I had to have margarita. No, you didn't. You made that decision. All right, so no guesstimating when you're tracking your calories. By the way, I want to reiterate this: tracking calories is a bare minimum. It is not unique. It is not going over the top. It's not working hard. It's doing the bare minimum. If you're not tracking calories, you're not serious. It's not. Like people be like, "Yo, I'm tracking calories. I'm not seeing as many results as I want." It's like, okay, aren't you supposed to be like? That's not special. Like, of course, you're supposed to be tracking calories. Just be patient, right? People be like, "Yo," people say this shit all the time. They say, "Yo, I'm eating high protein. I'm working out, and like the results are discouraging." It's like you just started doing the bare minimum for 4 weeks or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and you want 10 years worth of results. No, try 10 years, bro. Like, come on now. Anyways, make sure you're hitting your macros to the T. That means weigh out your shit, weigh out the meats, pause, you know, measure the apples and the grapes and all that shit, because y'all be overdoing a lot of that shit. All right, so make sure you measure all that shit, because that shit's important. And here's the thing, eating the same shit every day is a cheat code. Somebody asked the other day, they're like, hey, is it okay if I eat the same thing every day? Someone said it's not healthy. And I told them, I'm like, here's the thing, listen up. In order for us, whoever, if you're out of shape, if you're above 20% body fat, you've been eating the same thing over and over. That's how you got there. You've been eating the same snack at night, Ben and Jerry's, or you've been eating the same McDonald's, the same Wendy's, the same Taco Bell, the same KFC. That's how you got fat as shit. All right. So in order to lose fat, it's the same formula. For me to get lean, for me to get on this journey, guess what I had? I had this shit in the morning, the eggs. You feel me? And then what did I have for dinner? I had some ground beef every fucking night, bro. And I kept it simple. Got used to making it. Made it real taste real good. It was super sustainable because it's simple. What's simple is easy to do. What's easy to do is sustainable. When you're sustainable with something, that's how you create consistency. A lot of you guys cannot create consistency because what you're doing is unsustainable in the first place. Like you're trying to do an aggressive cut, but you have 30% body fat to lose. You're not gonna last very long. All right, you got to pace yourself. All right, so what did a day of eating look like? Like I said, when you find some foods that you like, all right, and I'm talking to y'all just how I talk to my brothers, how I talk to my homeboys, how I talk to my clients. All right, just keeping it very simple, straightforward. But like I always say, repeatability equals sustainability in every aspect of life, right? Repeatability equals sustainability. All right. So my breakfast is always very simple: eggs with cheese. And if I didn't have, tater tots or English muffins, I would do oatmeal. If I didn't have tater tots, I might do some potatoes. It's all the same shit, all right. But I'm just keeping it very simple: eggs and then some carb source. Simple, simple. And I get the omega 3s and the omega 9s and all the healthy fats from the eggs anyways. Dinner and lunch was always some kind of ground beef or ground turkey or ground chicken. They all have very similar calories. You can switch them all out. Then I'll do it with either nachos or wraps, but I would count out the nachos, count out the wraps because obviously you're tracking everything. Sweet potatoes or regular potato. It's always like meat and potatoes, meat and rice, meat and wraps. Very simple shit. All right, very straightforward. A lot of you guys know what to eat, but you just say some shit like, "Oh, I don't know what to eat," because you're just not disciplined. You're just not disciplined to eat enough. You're not disciplined enough to eat what you need to eat. That's what it really is. It's not you don't know what to eat. You know what the fuck to eat. All right. So step number one, easy. Find your calorie intake. Here's the thing. Most people already have done this. They've went into one of these calculators. They typed the calories in, but guess what? They didn't fucking execute it. All right. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. If you're a dude, you're above 20% body fat. You're above like you're above like 5'7", right? You're above 200 pounds, right? So that's pretty much every dude. I promise to God, if you ate around 2,500 calories every day, whole foods, high protein, you'd be losing fat, right? I don't know your exact weight and height and activity level, but majority of people, if they ate around 2,500 calories as a dude, they would be losing fat, right? Obviously, depending on your height and weight, age, activity level, you could eat more or less, right? Usually, it's going to be around that area to like start off with because there's a lot of people who are like 6 foot, 290, 300, 280, 270, and they'll hit me up and they're like, "Yeah, man, I'm struggling to lose fat. I'm eating 2,200 calories." I literally just tell them, "No, you're not." And then they're like, "Yeah, yeah, my promise to track." I'm like, "No, you're not. It's not that deep. All right, you can't be that fucking big and eating 2,200 calories. It's literally impossible. You're literally big as hell, bro. Like me, me at 190 to get to 180, I'm eating 2,200 calories, right? Anywhere between 1,900 to 2,200. So is your metabolism that cooked, or do I just have special genetics? I don't have special genetics. Your metabolism is not that cooked. All right, you're just eating way more than you say you are because you don't know how to track. Very very simple. So use a calorie calculator and actually type in the fucking shit that you eat. Don't type in something that you want to eat and then you eat something else. See what I'm saying? Like you're like, yeah, man. So right now I'm just gonna get, I'm gonna eat a protein cookie, and then I'm gonna have, this for breakfast, and then in real life you're not eating a protein cookie. You're eating crumble cookie. Yeah, yeah, I know I was gonna say crumble, but you're eating crumble cookie or some other goofy shit or some Subway cookies. All right. Next, after you find your calories, right? Which, like I said, man, like it's not even like anybody. Majority of people that I've talked to, right? Generally, if someone doesn't work with me, what I do on the phone calls, by the way, is like we talk, and I can kind of see. That's why I like to have Zoom calls. I could kind of see how serious a person is. And I'm like, yeah, this motherfucker ain't serious. Like I had a few calls and they're like, yeah, man, I just that sounds great. I'm like, yeah, this nigga ain't serious. This nigga's gonna stay fat for the rest of his life. And the thing is, you go grocery shopping every week. We got to eat every day. These are things we do every day. If you if you just never make a change, if you never commit to change, nothing's gonna change. If nothing changes, nothing changes, right? And a lot of people, they don't want to change the groceries they're shopping for, but you're gonna eat, you're gonna grocery shop. Why not grocery shop for shit that goes towards your goals instead of away from your goals? Why not eat what goes towards your goals instead of away from your goals? So when you grocery shop, this is the first fucking step. Because if you don't surround yourself with what you need, if you don't surround yourself with the healthy foods, how the hell are you gonna eat the healthy foods? Which is probably the most interesting concept of all time, and probably the most important part of this is literally grocery shopping, because I used to read a lot of articles and like watch what the bodybuilders eat and stuff like that. And I used to try to eat it, and I would always find, I'm like, yo, I just don't have these foods. I just don't have these foods because I didn't know where to get them in the grocery store, or I was too young and my parents would be getting the food and shit like that. The thing is, once you're surrounded by these foods, like right now, if I'm so hungry and I want to binge, all I can do is eat almonds and then I'll go right back to sleep or something. Like I just don't have those foods around. I don't have unhealthy food around me, so it's like impossible to not be lean, literally. So stay on the perimeter of the grocery store. That's number one. Lean meats, ground beef, ground turkey, eggs, and then of course like your salmon, shrimp, tilapia, all that stuff. And then keep non-fat dairy, cheddar cheese, eggs, regular cheese, Swiss cheese, non-fat yogurt. Very simple shit, man. And then fruits and vegetables, potatoes, pasta. Just keep it really simple, keep it really basic, and just spam that over and over again, and you'll get your results. All right. The shit that y'all be doing, trying to fit Pop Tarts and chips into your diet, it's not gonna work. All right, it's not gonna work unless you're maintaining. If you're maintaining, you might be able to fit that stuff in there. All right, pause. All right, so strength training routine, like I said, man, keep it real simple. You can do upper lower, you can do push pull legs. You know what I'm saying? You can do all of that. All right, it all work. The reason I like push pull legs, you can hit every muscle twice in like an 8 to 10 day span, depending on how many rest days you take. All right, and compound movements are going to help you build a good foundation, especially if you're a beginner, and it'll help you maintain a lot of muscle mass because it's working a lot of muscles at once. Which is why I like the compound movements like squat, deadlift, bench. Well, not the barbell version of them, but I like incline dumbbell bench. I like Romanian deadlifts with dumbbells or Smith machine for hamstrings, and then some variation of squat, whether it's a goblet squat or squat machine or leg press is close enough. All right, simple. Now your cardio and activity level. So if you're currently, what you want to do is you want to maintain your current activity level. That's number one because one of the mistakes I see is when people start their cut, what they do is they end up reducing their activity level over time, right? So their activity level reduces over time. All right. And then they're like, wait, why am I not losing weight? It's because when you started, you're doing 12K steps a day. And then later on in your cut, now you're doing like 2K steps a day. The thing is, when you start cutting, you're going to have some metabolic adaptation. It's not going to be as significant as, people make it seem, but your body's going to want to conserve as much energy as possible. So it's going to reduce your need, right? So like I said, if you start your cut, obviously you're gonna have a lot more energy. You have a lot of body fat. You're eating a lot more calories. You're probably getting 10K steps a day. Then you're reducing your calorie intake. You feel a little bit more tired. You might be close to 10% body fat, or you might be 15%. And now you're only getting 2K steps. So make sure you always keep your steps the same as where they started. So that means, on the contrary, if you started at 2K steps, then that's your baseline. Do not go below it. So your initial step count average of where you started, never go below that. That's your baseline. All right. And that's a good marker as well. For example, if you're getting 5K steps a day and then you don't want to reduce your calories, but your fat loss slow down, you can up it to 10K steps a day. All right. Because you're tracking that. Me personally, I would always reduce the calories instead of just upping the steps. I just think it's way easier and it makes more sense. And it literally, to me, I see better results like that. And when people do it, they see better results like that too. All right, so some overlooked, underrated factors, not like super underrated factors, but still underrated factors. So, of course, sleep. Make sure you're getting 6 to 8 hours of sleep. Now, most of you guys get decent sleep, like average out during the week. If you get 4 hours 5 days a week, and you get 10 hours 2 days a week, that's gonna average out to like 6. So that'll be decent. All right, but sleep is important because it's going to control your cravings. If you don't get sleep, your leptin and ghrelin will be off. You'll be eating more meals, like you'll be eating more like candy and just bullshit. You'll be craving more bullshit, more sugary shit, and your cravings will just be all over the place. Versus when you get sleep, your cravings will be in check. You'll feel better. Digestion will be better. Everything will be better. All right. Gallon of water a day is super important. Make sure you're getting a gallon of water a day. Obviously, stress reduction is important. How do you reduce stress? You prepare for the worst and hope for the best, obviously, and you stay locked into your morning routine and your night routine so you control those two factors of the day. When you control part of your day, everything that happens throughout your day, obviously, because the day's going to happen to you like throughout your day, all the stuff that happens to you, it won't be as bad when you control your morning and your night because you'll feel like you have some semblance of control. Versus if you just don't have a morning routine and you don't have a night routine, you're just going to feel like the day happened to you and then you're going to be anxious about, oh my God, what's going to happen tomorrow? Will it be worse? You see what I'm saying? Another thing is your mental diet. That's one of the most fucking important things, all right? Especially if you're on a cut. You don't want to be watching Burger King commercials, mukbangs and fucking diners, drive-ins and dives. Bro, I was watching that shit. What is it called? Diners, drive-ins and dives or some shit? Chef Guy. I was watching that shit when I was on a cut. Yo, I almost died, bro. I was like, yo, I was hungry as fuck, bro. I was lean as hell. I was like, yo, I'm hungry as fuck, bro. But yeah, you don't want to be watching that shit. You don't want to be watching, negative shit talking about, oh, you can't lose fat because you have hormonal issues. That's not the reason. Like, not losing fat because of hormonal issues is like 0% of people. It just never fucking happens. All right. The cortisol shit, that shit's goofy. I don't even want to talk about shit. Like, cortisol goes up and down throughout the day, guys. All right. If your cortisol levels are high, yes, you're going to hold more water, but, and you'll hold a little bit more fat, but you're not going to have 100 pounds of fat. All right. Like, there's levels to this shit. Like, if you're 12% body fat and you're stuck and you have a lot of stress, it's gonna be hard to get to 10. Your cortisol levels will be high. But if you're 50% body fat and you're blaming it on cortisol, it's not the fucking cortisol. All right. Like, I see way too many, specifically the ladies on TikTok. They'll be like 40% body fat and they're blaming cortisol. No, 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 no. Maybe if you're 25% or 20%, but 40, no, fuck that. All right. Anyways, and another thing for mental diet, make sure you're listening to like David Goggins' motivation, Jim Rohn, just like locked in shit so you can stay locked in your entire journey because literally what you consume is gonna obviously control what you think about, and what you think about is gonna control what you do. So if you're constantly listening to like I can do this, I can do that, David Goggins went through this, Jeff Lowe's went through that, like you constantly listen to this shit, it's gonna keep you motivated, inspired, and locked in, right? Versus if you're just listening to the negative news or people who fail on the journey, or people if you're listening to people who just don't care about fitness, it's gonna mess with your head. All right. My starting deficit now. Going back to this, I would probably start out for like 3,000 calories or some shit, to be honest. But anyways, started at like 2,600. Once I reached 210, I reduced it again. I was trying to speed through this cut as fast as possible, obviously. So I reduced, calories a little bit more. The thing is, if you are compliant with your with your calories like on the mark, then you'll be able to decrease it more and more and more. A lot of times I'll see people, they'll be like they can't stick to the first calorie number and they want to drop their calories. That's the dumbest fucking thing of all time. If you can't stick to a higher calorie number, you're not going to be able to stick to a lower calorie number. That doesn't make any sense. You're just panicking because you don't believe in yourself and you don't trust yourself to eat that calorie. So you want to undereat and lower your calories to justify your binges on the weekend. That's not how it works. All right, you're never gonna make progress like that. But I see that shit all the time. I see people. I tell someone to eat like I'm like, yo, you're kind of fat as shit, bro. Eat 2,800 calories. They'll eat 2,800 calories and then they'll binge over that, and then they'll be like, yo, can I just drop it to 2,000 so I can get it so quick? No, you have too much fat to lose to do an aggressive cut. All right, it's not gonna work. Like it's just not gonna work. You have to realize that an aggressive cut is for someone who's maybe 15% body fat or lower, and their goal is 10 to 12%. They're gonna do a 4 week cut or something like that. It's not for someone who is 40% and they want to cut down to 10% in 4 weeks. That's not even fucking possible. All right. The truth about snacking. So the reason I encourage snacking and the things I would recommend you snack on: nuts, cashews, almonds, fruits, berries, apples, and then protein supplements are probably the greatest. Like there's some gyms out here in Thailand that got like these protein balls. There's like just a lot of shit that I'm saying in this video, but they got like these protein balls that are like donuts, but they're like protein donuts. They taste, I mean, they don't taste that good, honestly, but they're a good snack after your workout. They're pretty solid. They do have some protein muffins at some gyms that taste decent, like they taste okay. So just having those snacks will curb your appetite and keep you satiated before your next meal, right? And you won't be like it'll make it more bearable for you to get to the next meal, especially as you get leaner and leaner and leaner, right? So snacking, I definitely love snacking. It really prevents the big binges because a lot of times if you look at it, when you have big binges, or the reason you had big binges is because you starved for too long or you went too long without food. Like once you start going 6 hours without food or 5 hours without food, your blood sugar is gonna crash, and you're really going to be craving something. Like, and when you start craving, the reason your body craves is so you can bring your blood sugar back up, right? So what are you going to crave? High sugary shit, processed carbs, because that spikes your insulin the fastest. So for example, when I thought when I thought I was Himothy, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do this 12-hour shift at the nursing home without no food. Okay. Okay. I learned the hard way. So I ended up doing a 16-hour shift during COVID, no fucking food, no water. Right. I literally, by the time I got off the shift, I took off my face shield, I took off my mask. I was literally like, my beard was in my mouth, bro. It was disgusting. Like, it was like, I had like pieces of beard in my mouth, and my mouth was so dry, bro. I was so hungry after that shift. I stopped at the nearest gas station, bro. I literally destroyed every like honey bun, candy, fucking Oreo, all that shit. So preparation is key. So prepare yourself in advance. All right. Make sure you do what you need to do so you don't end up in that situation. You got to be preventative. So try to eat every 4 hours or 5 hours, or if you feel like you're getting a little bit hungrier than usual, have a snack. All right. Snacks are super important for that reason. They keep your blood sugar stable. All right. So make sure you're preventative. All right. All right. So I don't know how many of you guys are in the medical field, but the concept of anti-nausea meds are very interesting to me because when you're having nausea, the worst thing you can do, I'm not talking about IV, I'm talking about oral, right? So the worst thing you can do is like when you are nauseous is to take a medication for nausea like orally, because you're just going to throw it up because you're already nauseous. So what we used to do for our rehab patients, every 4 hours we would give them some Zofran, right, for nausea. And they'd be like, I'm not nauseous yet. I'm like, yeah, I know, but you're going to be nauseous. All right, I'm not gonna give this to you when you're nauseous. It's the dumbest fucking thing of all time. Like you're like, and then I give you a med, and you're like, and you're just gonna throw it up, right? So you got to be preventative like that with your nutrition as well, because by the time it's time to like, if you go 12 hours without food, obviously you're not gonna be craving, you're gonna be craving sweet potatoes and steak. You're gonna be craving, a 20-ounce ribeye and some fries with a chocolate cake for dessert or some shit like that. All right. So if you don't want to binge or you find yourself binging, it's because you're going too long without eating. Right. Some people can do fasting, um, but there's pros and cons to it. But I definitely wouldn't recommend it if you struggle with binging already. All right, how to stay locked in. So, like I said, eating more consistently throughout the day is going to help you with the less cravings. And like I said, preventative is the biggest thing. So once you start eating more consistently throughout the day, you're eating higher fiber, eating higher protein, you're drinking a lot of water, you're drinking coffee, drinking teas and stuff like that. You're going to notice, you're going to be like, yo, I feel better. And then it's going to give you that sense of like, I can do this. I can actually accomplish this shit, right? Which is really, really good. It's going to give you that sense of, you know, capability. And you really, really need that, especially in this journey, because if you failed many times and this time you finally feel like you can do it, then that's going to give you that positive energy that you need, that positive attitude that you need to approach it with every single day. And a lot, like I said, a lot of times cravings just come from a long period of time. All right. So eat more foods, high volume. Stop thinking a hunger pain means that you're starving. All right. Because a hunger pain does not mean that you're starving. It just means that you adjusted your eating habits. Very, very simple. And here's the foods that you absolutely want to avoid if you're trying to get lean. Now, this is only if you're serious about getting lean. I know a lot of you guys think that balance is key. That literally makes no fucking sense, because the reason you're overweight and out of shape is because you've been out of balance. That's the only like if you were if you're lean in shape and healthy, then that means you're in balance. But you're out of balance because you've been eating unhealthily. So in order to restore balance, you need to eat in a deficit and avoid this shit right here. Avoid the candy, the processed sugars, the fried foods, the chocolate, the liquor, the juices, all that shit. And just cook all your meals at home. All right, that'll literally knock out all your issues if you cook all your meals at home. Just do these things so you knock out your issues. If you don't do these things, you're gonna have issues. Very simple. Like people who have issues, guess what? They're like, "Dang man, uh, I had really bad cravings yesterday." Yeah, because you ate processed sugars. I had really bad cravings because you ate candy. Dang, I feel like shit because you drank liquor. Damn, bro, I feel like I don't know, man. I feel kind of nauseous because you ate fried foods, bro. Very simple. All right, so what do you do when you overate your calories? You had an unplanned cheat day. Someone asked me this yesterday as well on live. And what you want to do is, you don't want to do extra cardio. You don't want to fast for 24 hours. It doesn't make any fucking sense. You don't want to drink a bunch of coffee and water fast. You don't want to drink a laxative. All that shit's dumb. Just get right back on track. Because at the end of the day, what you do 90% of the time is going to dictate your results. All right. So, being that we're human, we're going to mess up every once in a while. So, if you have a day where you mess up and you overeat, guess what you're gonna do? You're just gonna get right back on track. All right, because if you have one bad day like 40 times a year, that's still gonna mean that 90% of the time you're doing what you need to do, which is better than you've ever done in your life. If you really think about it, I want you to really think about, like, have you ever had a year where you ate what you're supposed to 90% of the time? I know I have, but like, just think about this shit. Have you guys ever had a year where you guys ate, high protein, hit your calories, tracked everything 90% of the time? Probably not. So if you mess up once and get back on track, you'll be fine. All right, once isn't gonna kill you. It's letting that one unplanned cheat meal or cheat day throw you off mentally and spiral out of control. That's what it really is. All right, because one bad day ain't gonna do shit, bro. Listen, you can ask you can ask me and my homeboys. All right, so when we're super lean, all right. Now, if you're not 8% body fat or you don't get around 8% body fat, this isn't gonna make sense to you. All right, this isn't gonna make sense to you. But when we get around 8% body fat, we've been cutting for a long fucking period of time. We got like four veins in our abs and shit. We'll have like I'll be like, yo, my body's dying, bro. I'm gonna have like a refeed week, restore my libido, my testosterone, all that shit. And I'll eat like fucking 5,000, 6,000 calories a day. All right. And guess what? Nothing really happens, to be honest. I gained some water weight. I don't gain any fat though. Like I gained maybe a pound of fat, right? But it just kind of elevates everything, and then kind of gives me speeds up my metabolism as well. So instead of like a refeed day, I'll do a refeed week because I'll just skip all my refeed days that I'm supposed to have and just lock in for like a long period of time. Then I have like a refeed week, right? But anyways, um, that just goes to show that if you do what you need to do 90% of the time, you'll be fine. But if you're not doing what need to do 90% of the time and you're asking for a cheat day, you don't deserve a cheat day because your balance isn't there, right? You've been eating, you've had a cheat life, you've had a cheat year, like you've never even eaten on track. Like The refeed days, the cheat days, and stuff like that is only for people who are getting lean because they've actually been doing what they need to do. If you just started your diet and you're on a cheat day, that doesn't make any fucking sense. It means you're either being too restrictive or you're not being disciplined enough. Simple. Mistakes to avoid. Shout out to my boy Mashley. All right, I know someone said I said it wrong. I say Mashley. That's how it's spelled. All right. Anyways, mistakes to avoid. All right, thinking that you know everything, thinking that you are, your eye test is good and guesstimating is okay. This is by far the biggest mistake that I see. This one thing right here is the biggest mistake that I see. People are like, yeah, man, I'm probably eating. I'm definitely eating around 500. I'm like, the fuck do you mean around 500? If you're trying to lose fat and you're serious about this shit, you better know your exact calories. They're like, all right, bet let me track it. It's 750, and you got to look at the back of the labels. If you type in, you know, if you type in 93.7 beef on my fitness pal, but you're actually eating 80/20, there's a big difference. If you type in, high fiber tortilla wraps on my fitness pal, but you're eating regular tortilla wraps, that's a 240 calorie difference. All right. There's all these small differences matter. You got to be meticulous. You got to pay attention to this shit. All right. That's only if you want to get lean. If you think this is too much, then that just means you don't care about getting lean enough. Period. All right. Use cups. Use measuring cups. Use all that shit. You got to measure your foods. Tablespoons. Have a scale. Like if you're doing peanut butter, definitely track that shit too, because peanut butter adds up like a motherfucker. All right. Not tracking your numbers in the gym. So like I said, a lot of you guys want to maintain muscle. If you are not maintaining strength, how can you maintain muscle? So you have to make sure that you are tracking your numbers in the gym. You have to be tracking your numbers. All right, write that shit down. It's really not that difficult, bro. Like, it's not that hard. Write down what you're doing. If you're doing the same weight, just, keep it there until you do a different weight. You can write in your notes app. There's other apps you can use, or you can write it on a notebook. I'm old school, so I'll do my notes app or a notebook. All right, that's me. Another thing is not tracking your waist size. So you guys drop 30 pounds and or you guys drop 0 pounds and you're like, damn, I'm not making progress. When in reality you drop 2 inches off your waist. What does it mean when you drop 0 pounds but 2 inches off your waist? It means you're losing fat and gaining muscle. That's what that means. However, if you didn't take your waist size, you wouldn't know that. I've had plenty of times where, a client, she was like, oh my God, I really want to lose weight. I want to lose weight really bad. I'm like, okay, well, your first and initial concern, your main concern was losing belly fat. So I'm going to prioritize fat loss, but weight loss will come as well. So the first month, since she was gaining muscle because she didn't lift weights a lot, but her body composition changed a lot. She lost 4 inches off her waist, but only 4 pounds. And she's like, I thought I would lose more pounds. I'm like, bitch, look at your fucking waist. It looks ridiculously amazing now. So that's the progress you'll see. All right. Another time, I was training a doctor in the gym, right? Because his wife came up to me and she's like, he needs a trainer. Like, this is unacceptable. She was super fit and he was cooked, right? So 1 month in, his goal was to lose fat, right? Which he did, but like we stepped on the scale and he kind of panicked, after the first month because he put on a lot of fucking muscle because he never touched weights before. He had like newbie gains like crazy. He gained like I think it had to be between 8 to 10 pounds, but he lost like 3 4 inches off his waist and his quads got bigger, his arms got more muscular. I mean, dude was looking great, bro. Dude was looking great, bro. So that's what happens when you prioritize fat loss. All right, the scale is gonna go up or down or stay the same, but the waist size, the body fat will come down, which is all that matters. And make sure you're also taking progress pictures, all right? Because a lot of times people don't realize how much progress they make until they put like their month one, day one versus their month six, right? Because even me, I didn't notice a lot of differences, and I'll be like, let me put this one next to this one. I'm like, oh shit, that's a big difference. And the reason we don't notice our differences is because you look in the mirror every single day. All right, so if you lose 1 millimeter of fat, how the fuck can you notice? You're not going to, right? Another thing is not drinking enough water. Water is going to keep you satiated. Also, if you if you want to just drink some more stuff, you could do some tea. You could do some non-caffeinated tea, like some non-caffeinated green tea, some coffee, some decaf coffee. You can do there's like a bunch of sparkling waters you can do. There's a drink called ice. There's what is it called? Uh op op pop bop poppy. There's poppy drinks. There's like a bunch of different drinks, sparkling waters that you can do to kind of keep you satiated as well. Another thing, of course, is not sleeping enough. If you don't sleep enough, guess what's gonna happen? You're gonna be hungry as shit. All right, and guess what's gonna happen? Not even God could stop you from eating, bro. Like if I don't sleep, nobody can stop me, bro. Like I will beat up a bear to eat if I don't get enough sleep and I get that hangry. All right. Now, like I said earlier, dealing with hunger pains, I just said it. Drink the ice drinks, drink tea, drink coffee, stay hydrated. Do not let a day go by where it's like you've been up for 12 hours and you didn't drink half a gallon at least. Because if you're dehydrated and it's the middle of the day, you're gonna reach for carbs first, and nothing can fill you up because your stomach volume is gonna be empty. So if you try to fill your stomach volume with only food, you're gonna be able to eat like 5,000 calories. Versus if you're drinking water throughout the day, you'd be more hydrated, which means you'd be more full. All right. So let me tell you one of the goofiest concepts of all time: stubborn fat. When people tell me I have stubborn belly fat, nobody in the world has stubborn belly fat. Let me tell you what they have. They have stubborn fucking habits. All right. You don't have stubborn belly fat. You have stubborn habits. Because I see people who've been struggling with body fat for 5 years, but they've done the same habits for 5 years, which is eat bullshit, right? At maintenance. Eat high fat, high processed sugar at maintenance year after year, which is exactly why they maintain their belly. Because in order for them to have a big ass belly, stubborn belly fat, they have to have stubborn habits. All right, that's all it is. They're eating that maintenance, so they're maintaining. If you really think about it, that's what stubborn belly fat is. Like if you've had the same, 42-inch waist for the fellas, if you had the same 42-inch waist for years, it's because you've been eating at maintenance, right? That's all it is. You've been maintaining it. So that means if you ate below maintenance, you would now lose the 42-inch waist. See what I'm saying? So be relentless, be hyper aware, strength train, eat whole foods, drink a gallon a day, be patient, be precise, man. Got to be meticulous. And here's the mindset, man. Let me tell you something. All right, this impatience, this instant gratification, is one of the biggest issues with the current society. Obviously, it literally took most of you guys, I don't want to say years, because it's really decades. Like if you're 40 plus, you've been eating like shit for decades, and you have the audacity to just look at someone's results and be like, "Oh, I want those results." No, you don't deserve those results. You've been eating like shit. All right, pace yourself. Focus on progress, not perfection. Remember, you're human. All right, you're not gonna lose fat overnight, and know where you're starting. Be aware of where you're starting. I tell my clients this all the time. Here's the thing: if you are starting at 40% body fat. Like this is a real thing. Most people start at 30 or 40%. That means you won't be seeing abs for a while, and you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with changing your mindset, changing your lifestyle, all right? You have to focus on that. Because if you go in there with expectations, like if you see a transformation where the guy's initial body fat percentage was 18 and 4 months later they get down to 10, you're gonna have those expectations where in reality you're nowhere near 18. You're at 40. All right. So know where you're starting. It's just like if you say, if you're in New York and you want to go to San Francisco, right? And you're like, yo, I'm gonna walk to San Francisco. I'll be there in 2 hours. Unless you're a dinosaur, you can't fucking walk that far in 2 hours. All right. So you got to know where you're starting to know how long it's gonna take you to get to where you need to get to. All right. So you don't have unrealistic expectations. A lot of you guys fail because your expectations were unrealistic in the first place. And if you told anybody who has common sense, they'd be like, you know what, I love your goals and all that, bro, but it's gonna take a little bit longer, bro, because it's gonna take a little bit longer than that. Realistically, you can only lose fat at a certain rate. So if you lose extra weight, that doesn't mean you've lost extra fat. Probably just lost some muscle or water weight. So don't try to speed up, the weight loss process. Just be patient, consistent, and make sure it's sustainable as well. All right. And stop being here's the funniest thing. Here's the funniest thing. Okay, back to this common common trope that people say. They always say like, "Hey, Luther, man, I've been grinding for 2 3 months." That's a joke to me. I don't want to ever hear that shit again. The grind. If you've been doing the bare minimum for 2 to 3 months, that's not a grind. You didn't even start the grind yet, bro. You're not even at month 6. Like that's not a grind, bro. That's not. You're doing the bare minimum. You're eating healthy. That's what you're supposed to do. Is called eating healthy. All right, that's cool. Cool. You're working out. You're supposed to do that to build muscle, and burn fat, and release stress. Okay. You're drinking water. You're supposed to. Your body needs water. You're 60% water. Okay. I'm sleeping 6 to 8 hours. You're supposed to. You wanna fucking have hormonal issues or ghrelin and leptin level issues and low testosterone. Like you're supposed to be doing all these things for your health. Like basically, when I hear people say I've been grinding for 2 to 3 months, I hear them saying, "Oh, I'm finally doing the bare minimum, and I expect results faster than they happen." Just be fucking patient, man. All right, stop being frustrated with results you don't get from the work you're not putting in. All right, be consistent. All right, now that you guys know exactly how to lose fat. If you're serious about losing fat, very very serious, like locked in, you're ready to do this. Not the bullshit. Not the what I think I'll do this. I want to get ready for summer. If you're really ready to change your life, be consistent, get leaner, lose fat, and maintain your muscle mass, and do it for life. Make it a lifestyle. Link is in the description. Make sure you tap in. Y'all stay blessed.